It was close to midnight when I started my Halloween night delivery route through the mountain pass. My name's Luke Harlan. Been doing late-night courier runs for about 3 years now. I never really believed in ghosts or curses. To me, the road was just a road, asphalt, wind, engine hum. But that night I learned the road has a memory. The company had assigned me an emergency delivery to a cabin near Ridge Hollow, a steep, twisting route that cuts through the old mining hills. Locals said not to drive there after dark, but my paycheck didn't care about ghost stories. I had one box in the back, light as air, but labeled, "Do not open, urgent medical delivery." I didn't ask questions. By the time I hit mile marker 19, fog had rolled in so thick it looked alive. My headlights carved narrow tunnels through it, catching glimpses of rain-slick branches that hung low like skeletal arms. The GPS on my dashboard started flickering, recalculating every few seconds. Then it froze completely. "Figures," I muttered, tapping the screen. No signal, just static and a dead blue glow. I'd driven this route only once before, months ago, and I remembered it being straightforward. 2 main turns, a bridge, then up to the ridge. I told myself I'd be fine, but as I drove deeper, the road seemed to twist in ways that didn't make sense. Sharp bends came out of nowhere. The trees pressed closer to the shoulder, and I began noticing things that shouldn't have been there. An old wooden sign split in half, a rusted mailbox with no house nearby, a single boot lying upright in the middle of the asphalt. Rain started to fall, light at first, then harder. It drummed against the windshield, washing the world into shifting shadows. That's when I first saw her. Just a flash in the rearview mirror, a pale face behind me, too still to be a trick of the light. I blinked, heart hammering, and turned around. The back seat was empty. My duffel bag was still there, straps coiled like sleeping snakes. I laughed under my breath. "You're losing it, Luke." But I couldn't shake the smell that followed, like wet soil, heavy and raw, the scent of something freshly dug up. A few miles later, I hit a patch of fog so dense I had to slow down to a crawl. I could barely see my own hood. The smell grew stronger. I cracked a window, thinking maybe something was wrong with the truck's filters, but it wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the cab. My skin prickled. I checked the mirror again. She was there. A woman sitting perfectly still in the back seat. Her hair was soaked, stringy and black, hanging over a face I couldn't fully see. A white dress clung to her body like it had been buried and dug back up, stained with streaks of mud. She stared straight ahead, not meeting my eyes, as if the mirror wasn't supposed to notice her. My throat went dry. I didn't move for several seconds, afraid any sound would make her turn. Finally, I spun around. Empty. Nothing. Just the fog pressing against the glass. But the smell didn't fade. I drove faster. My hands were shaking on the wheel. Every time lightning flashed outside, I saw her for half a second. In the mirror, in the side window, even in the reflection of the wet dashboard. Always just behind me. Never closer. I started talking out loud just to hear something human. "It's just exhaustion. You've been up since 6. It's Halloween. Your brain's playing tricks. That's all." A voice whispered back. "You took my road." It came from directly behind me. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded sideways, tires screaming on the wet asphalt until I came to a stop. The radio flickered on by itself. Static, then faint voices like people talking underwater. I turned it off. My breathing sounded like it filled the whole world. I looked at the mirror again. Nothing. But something had changed. The fog outside wasn't just fog anymore. It swirled against the windows like fingers pressing from the outside. My headlights flickered, and in the brief darkness I heard movement inside the truck. A wet shuffle, cloth dragging against leather. I didn't look back this time. I hit the gas and kept my eyes forward. The road was narrower now, unfamiliar. I couldn't see any mile markers, just shapes of trees and, God help me, crosses nailed to them. Dozens of them, like a graveyard stitched along the road. I tried to turn the wheel, but it felt heavy, like something was holding it. The radio crackled again. Through the static, a woman's voice whispered, "You shouldn't have taken it." "It's mine," I shouted. "What do you want from me?" Silence, then a soft sound like someone crying. It wasn't far away, it was inside the cab. Behind me. I forced myself to look. She was sitting in the passenger seat now, close enough that I could see the mud crusted under her fingernails. The way her skin looked translucent in the flickering dash light. Her eyes were hollow, filled with water, reflecting nothing. Her mouth opened slightly and black liquid dripped from her lips onto the seat. I screamed, slammed the brakes again, and jumped out into the storm. The rain was freezing. I could barely see, but I ran toward the trees, slipping on the mud. Behind me, I heard the truck engine still running, headlights cutting through the fog like dying eyes. I didn't look back until I heard the door creak open. She stepped out. The white dress clung to her, dark streaks trailing behind as she moved without sound. Every step left a wet footprint on the road. The wind picked up, howling through the branches, and for a second it sounded like voices, dozens of them whispering her name. I ran until I couldn't anymore. The road just stopped. It ended at a drop-off, the kind of cliff you don't see until it's too late. Below was black nothing. The rain blurred everything into motion. I turned around, but the road was gone. Just mist and the faint outline of my truck headlights flickering. She stood beside it now, facing me. Lightning flashed, and I saw her clearly. Half her face was gone, skin washed away by years of rain and rot. Her jaw moved unnaturally as she spoke again. "You took my road." I stepped back, and my heel hit nothing but air. The world flipped. Then there was only the sound of wind, water, and her voice fading into the rain. They found my truck the next morning, parked neatly on the shoulder. The engine was still running. The radio was playing soft static. My bag was untouched, the delivery box still sealed. The only thing out of place was a single wet footprint on the passenger seat. It was just past midnight when I hit Route 13, the loneliest stretch of road in the entire county. My name's Sophie Darnell. I was 26 that Halloween night, tired, a little buzzed from cider, and still wearing my cat ears from the costume party. I'd left earlier than everyone else because I hated driving that road after dark. There are no streetlights, no houses, just cornfields that stretch for miles and the occasional hand-painted cross by the shoulder. The air outside was cool, the kind that smells like burnt leaves and wet soil. My windshield wipers clicked back and forth in a lazy rhythm, smearing mist across the glass. I remember the faint thump of bass still ringing in my ears from the party, like it had followed me into the silence. I had about 40 minutes left before home when I saw it. Just a faint, orange flicker up ahead. At first I thought it was a reflection, but as I got closer I realized it was a jack-o'-lantern, sitting dead center in the middle of the highway. It wasn't just any pumpkin either. It was huge, easily the size of a beach ball with jagged, uneven teeth carved in a crooked grin. The candle inside flickered violently, throwing shadows that danced across the wet asphalt. I slowed down, frowning. There wasn't a house or barn for miles, so who the hell would leave a pumpkin in the road? I pulled over onto the shoulder, hazard lights clicking like a heartbeat, and rolled down the window. The smell of smoke and rain drifted in. The fields on both sides of the road were pitch black. The only sound was the hum of my engine. Someone's idea of a prank, I muttered. Still, I couldn't just leave it there. It could cause an accident if anyone came flying down the hill behind me. So I put the car in park, grabbed my phone for light, and stepped out. The air was freezing, heavy with mist. My shoes crunched gravel as I walked toward the jack-o'-lantern. The closer I got, the more I noticed the detail. Its edges weren't cut with a knife. They were rough, uneven, almost torn. The candle inside sputtered. I crouched down, frowning. The pumpkin's skin was damp, not from rain, but from something sticky. It smelled faintly of iron. That's when my car door slammed shut behind me. I froze. I hadn't touched it. The keys were still in the ignition. A sharp gust of wind pushed through the fields, carrying a sound with it like faint laughter. Children laughing. High-pitched, quick, gone as soon as I turned my head. My phone buzzed in my hand and I nearly dropped it. A notification blinked across the screen. New photo saved. I hadn't taken one. My thumb hesitated before opening the gallery. The picture was grainy, but I recognized it instantly. My car, parked on Route 13. Except in the image. It wasn't alone. Figures surrounded it, dozens of them, tall, thin silhouettes holding glowing jack-o'-lanterns in their hands. Their faces, or whatever passed for faces, were smooth, pale, and featureless. No eyes, no mouths, just blank shapes standing in the dark. And behind them, lining the road in both directions, were hundreds of pumpkins, all lit, all smiling. My heart stuttered. I spun around, nothing, just fog and road. My hazard lights blinked red against the mist. I ran back toward the car, but when I reached for the handle, it was locked. The engine was still running. My breath came out in sharp white clouds. Inside, the radio switched on by itself. Static filled the air, then a faint voice came through. At first, it sounded like whispering, soft, broken, like someone tuning through stations. Then it became clearer. It was me. "Don't stop the car." I froze. The voice was my own. "Don't stop the car," it repeated, warping through the static. "Don't stop the car." Something moved in the fog beyond the road. A flicker of orange light, then another and another. I turned. Pumpkins. Dozens of them, lighting up one by one down the asphalt, stretching far into the darkness like a glowing spine. The candlelight inside each one flickered rhythmically, almost breathing. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. This time it was closer, like someone had stepped right up to me. I could see my own shoulder in the frame, and behind me, a faint reflection of something in the pumpkin's glossy surface. A shape, a face without features. I ran around the car, pounding the driver's window. Come on, come on." The locks clicked open. I dove inside and slammed the door shut. The smell hit me instantly. Wet earth, mold, and something sharp like copper. The air inside the car felt thick, humid, wrong. My dashboard lights flickered. The radio hissed. "Don't stop the car," my voice said again. The seat behind me creaked. I didn't dare turn around. My hands trembled as I threw the car into drive and pressed the accelerator. The tires spun in the wet gravel before catching traction, and I sped forward down Route 13. But the pumpkins didn't fade behind me. They followed. Every time my headlights hit the fog, more would appear. On the roadside. In the fields. Sitting on fence posts. Hundreds of carved faces grinning through the mist. And sometimes, between the flashes of orange light, I swore I saw silhouettes. Those same blank-faced figures standing perfectly still, holding their jack-o'-lanterns high like lanterns. The laughter returned, faint at first, then louder, echoing through the radio, through the static, through the wind. My headlights dimmed, flickered, then went completely out. I was driving blind, the world outside consumed by white fog and pulsing orange lights. Something tapped against my window, once, twice, 3 times. I turned, just enough to see a hand pressed against the glass. Long fingers, skin gray and wet, smeared with dirt. The hand dragged downward, leaving a trail. Then another hand appeared on the other side. And another, and another. The entire car was surrounded. I couldn't see their faces, just the pumpkins they carried, each one carved with a twisted grin, flames burning so bright inside they looked alive. I hit the gas harder, the engine roaring, wheels screeching against asphalt. The laughter turned into screams, dozens of voices shrieking in a pitch that clawed through my skull. "Don't stop," my voice said again from the radio, now desperate, cracking. "Don't stop the car, Sophie. Please don't stop." The steering wheel jerked in my hands as if something was pulling from the other side. The car swerved. I fought it, my muscles straining. I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror, just long enough to see the back seat. Someone was sitting there, a figure with a pumpkin for a head, flames flickering inside the carved holes. The smell of burning filled the cabin. I screamed and hit the brakes. The world exploded in sound, metal crunching, glass shattering, my own voice echoing in my ears. Then silence. When I came to, the car was still. My head throbbed. The windshield was cracked, fog pressing against it from the outside. My phone lay on the passenger seat, screen shattered but still glowing. Another photo notification blinked. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was me, sitting in the car. Except this time there was no fog, no darkness. The image was bright like daylight, and behind me through the rear window hundreds of figures stood in perfect rows, each one holding a lit pumpkin. Their faces were gone. The radio crackled softly. My own voice whispered, slow and trembling, "You shouldn't have stopped." The candlelight inside the jack-o'-lanterns outside began to dim, one by one, until only one remained. The one sitting in the middle of the road ahead. I could hear footsteps on the wet asphalt now, soft, squelching. Getting closer. A hand pressed against the cracked windshield. Fingers curled, nails scraping glass. Then through the static I heard laughter again. Children's laughter, faint and playful. It blended with the wind, the rain, and the rhythmic creak of my door slowly opening. The smell of smoke and damp earth filled the car. My eyes burned from the heat, though there was no fire. The last thing I remember was that voice whispering right next to my ear. "Happy Halloween, Sophie. They found my car 3 days later, empty, doors open, headlights still glowing faintly, though the battery was long dead. The police noted a line of jack-o'-lanterns leading from the road into the cornfield, each one burned down to the wick. They said my phone was still inside. The last photo on it? A perfect picture of Route 13, completely empty, except for a single pumpkin sitting in the middle of the asphalt, smiling up at the camera. My name's Dylan Rhodes, and I'm the only one who ever came back from Static Highway. At least, that's what they say. It was Halloween night, one of those damp, cold evenings when fog hangs low enough to taste, and every breath feels heavier than it should. There were 4 of us in the car. Me, my girlfriend Lily, her roommate Jen, and our friend Mark, who was driving his beat-up Honda Civic like it was immortal. We were juniors at Franklin College, bored, half-drunk, and chasing the kind of thrill that only comes from doing something stupid after midnight. The plan was simple. Drive down Route 191, better known as Static Highway. It used to be a proper interstate, but a landslide cut it off years ago. The government closed it after a pileup killed an entire family on Halloween night. Since then, people said the road vanished every October 31st. Some claimed if you drove far enough, your radio would play static that whispered your name. Others said you'd never reach the end. You'd just keep looping until something took you, of course. That sounded perfect for us. We left campus around 11:45 p.m., a half-empty bottle of whiskey sliding around the floor, the heater humming. The further we drove, the fewer lights we saw. Houses disappeared, then gas stations, then even the glow of the highway behind us. Soon it was just fog, pine trees, and the narrow beam of our headlights cutting through the dark. Lily sat beside me, humming softly, tracing hearts in the condensation on her window. Mark had the radio turned low, flipping through dead stations that buzzed and hissed like white noise. When we saw the sign, Jen read it aloud in her mock creepy voice. "Welcome to Route 191. Proceed with caution." Someone had spray painted over it in dripping black letters. Static Highway. We cheered like idiots and rolled past. The asphalt looked strange, too smooth, too new. No cracks, no debris, just endless black stretching forward like a ribbon laid across the fog. The forest on both sides was motionless, trees packed so tight that not even the moonlight could slip through. About 15 minutes in, the radio went completely silent. Then came the static, soft at first, like a whisper in the distance. Mark frowned and tapped the dial. "It's fine," I said. "Probably just bad reception." But it didn't sound random. There was rhythm to it, like breathing. A minute later, a voice slipped through. It wasn't clear at first, just distorted fragments drowned in white noise. Then it sharpened, clean as a whisper against glass. "Dylan." My head snapped toward the radio. Lily laughed nervously. "Did it just say your name?" "Probably interference," I said, forcing a smile. Just sounded like it, but the voice kept talking, slow and deliberate, as if reading from a list. "Lily, Mark, Jennifer." The car went silent. "Okay," Jen whispered. "That's not funny." Mark shut the radio off. The static stopped. For a few seconds, it was just the sound of the tires humming on the road. Then, as if mocking us, the radio clicked back on by itself, static again, louder. We drove on. No one spoke. The fog was thicker now, pressing against the glass like smoke. "Maybe we missed the turn," Mark said finally. "There's supposed to be an old gas station at the end." But we hadn't seen anything, not a sign, not a landmark, not even a curve in the road. It was as if the world outside the car no longer existed. After 20 more minutes, Jen pointed out the window. "There, a sign." We all leaned forward. "Route 191. Proceed with caution." The same sign. "Wait," Lily said, her voice shaking. Did we just loop back?" Mark frowned. "No way. I've been driving straight the whole time." He slowed the car and glanced at the GPS on his phone. The screen glowed in the dark, showing a blue route. But instead of a line stretching forward, it was a circle. A perfect unbroken loop. "What the hell?" Mark whispered. The static swelled again, louder, angry. We all jumped as the headlights flickered. For a second, I swore I saw figures in the fog, pale shapes standing between the trees, motionless. "Keep driving," I said. Mark's hands tightened on the wheel. The speedometer crept past 70. The fog streaked by like a tunnel, and the asphalt shimmered with moisture. Then the radio spoke again. This time it was clearer. The same voice, now whispering with what sounded like excitement. "Lap 2. Lily gasped. "It said lap 2? I checked the GPS. The blue circle pulsed once, then brightened as if acknowledging it. Mark floored it. The engine roared. "We're not stopping!" The road signs passed again. The same ones. The same patch of trees. Even the same crushed soda can by the shoulder. "Lap 3, the voice said, almost playful now. The air inside the car grew colder. My breath fogged in front of me. The windows began to frost at the corners, thin veins of ice crawling inward. Lily started crying softly. Jen was praying under her breath. Mark was gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles were white. "Maybe if we turn around," I started. "I already did," he shouted. "You didn't even notice. We've been driving the other way for 5 minutes." My stomach dropped. The trees, the fog, the road, it all looked identical. No matter the direction, it was the same stretch repeating endlessly. "Lap 4, the voice whispered. The radio hissed louder, almost deafening now. The static seemed to come from everywhere. The vents, the floor, even from inside our heads. Mark screamed, slamming the dash. "Shut up, just shut up!" The car jerked. We swerved hard, tires screeching. For a second, the headlights lit up the trees, and I saw them clearly this time. Dozens of people, pale as ash, standing perfectly still on either side of the road. Their faces were blank. Their mouths hung open like dark holes. Each of them had a small black device pressed to their ear like an old radio headset, and through every speaker I could hear it, the same static. The same voice, the GPS pinged. The circle flashed red. "Final lap," the voice said. Lily screamed. Jen was shaking uncontrollably. Mark was crying without sound, his foot still pressed to the gas. The fog thickened to the point I couldn't see the hood anymore. The engine whined, straining until everything outside the windshield was just motion and light. Then the car slowed on its own. Mark's foot was still down, but the pedal went soft, dead. The engine cut out. The headlights dimmed. We were gliding forward silently now, like being carried. The radio hissed, then cleared completely. The voice spoke one last time. Calm, pleased. Now we're full. Something knocked from the trunk. Once, twice. Then scratching. Slow. Deliberate, like fingernails on metal. I turned, expecting to see the others, but they were gone. The seats were empty. Only 4 faint impressions remained, body-shaped dents in the fabric, and the lingering smell of Lily's perfume. The car rolled to a stop. I don't remember getting out. I don't even remember walking. Just fog, silence, and that endless road stretching on forever. They found the car 3 days later. The doors were locked from the inside. The headlights were still glowing faintly, though the battery was dead. No bodies. Just static playing on a loop from the radio. Soft and steady, like breathing, and if you listened close enough, you could still hear it whispering names. Mine was first. My name's Ray Dalton. I've been a tow truck driver for over 15 years. Most nights are routine. Flat tires, dead batteries, maybe the occasional deer strike. But Halloween night 3 years ago changed the way I see the road forever. It was close to midnight and a storm was crawling over the county. Sheets of rain hammered my windshield as my wipers scraped back and forth in an uneven rhythm. The radio was nothing but static, and every few minutes the lightning would flash across the hills, lighting up the wet blacktop like a camera flash before plunging everything back into darkness. I was headed east on County Road 9, a long, isolated stretch that cut through the marshlands. Dispatch had just called off a service request due to flooding, so I figured I'd swing back toward town. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, maybe a quarter mile in the distance, taillights flickered faintly through the rain. At first I thought it was a stalled car, an old sedan, maybe from the 80s, gliding slow and steady down the highway. But what caught my eye was, it wasn't moving like a normal car. It wasn't bouncing with the road. It was just floating, almost sliding on the surface, and it made no sound. No hum of an engine. No splashes from the tires. Just the storm. I slowed down, squinting through the downpour. "You okay up there?" I muttered, more to myself than anyone. The sedan kept drifting ahead, perfectly centered in the lane with no headlights on. Just a faint reflection of lightning on its roof. I radioed dispatch. "Unit 12 to base. I've got a vehicle moving eastbound, looks like no lights, possible stall or hydroplaning. Static. Only static." The line fizzed and cracked, then cut off completely. I tapped the mic, tried again. Nothing, fine. I'd check it myself. I eased the tow truck forward, keeping my high beams on the sedan. It didn't react. Didn't speed up or slow down, it just glided into a thick wall of fog that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. I followed inch by inch until the fog swallowed everything. The road, the sky, the rain. The world went gray and silent. Even the storm's sound dulled, like I'd driven underwater. I could barely see 5 feet ahead, but the sedan's outline lingered, its shape dissolving slowly like a shadow fading in light. And then, it was gone, just gone. I slammed the brakes, heart pounding. My headlights cut through the fog and revealed empty pavement. No car, no taillights, not even tire spray. What the hell? I whispered. I stepped out, rain instantly soaking through my jacket. The air was colder here, unnaturally cold, my breath misting like it was December instead of late October. That's when I saw them. Tire marks. Fresh ones, slick and black, curving off the road and down the embankment toward the marshy pond that sat about 20 yards out. My flashlight beam trembled as I followed the trail. The mud squelched under my boots and the smell of stagnant water hit me. Rotten vegetation, algae, old earth. The tire tracks led directly into the pond, then disappeared beneath the dark water. My stomach twisted. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, I said, trying the radio again. "I think I've got a vehicle submerged on Route 9 just past Miller's Bend." This time the radio hissed, then a voice crackled through. But it wasn't dispatch, it was a man's voice. Weak, distorted by static, whispering just 3 words. "Don't follow me." I froze. "Who is this?" I barked. "Identify yourself." Silence, only the storm. I backed up slowly toward my truck, eyes fixed on the pond. For a second, I thought I saw movement beneath the surface, a pale shimmer like metal reflecting light. Then it vanished again. I left the scene right after that and called the sheriff from a payphone back in town. They sent divers the next morning. What they found still keeps me up at night. The pond wasn't deep, maybe 15 feet. But sitting upright in the murky water was an old gray sedan, rusted and broken, like it had been there for decades. Inside was the skeleton of a man, still buckled into the driver's seat. The license plate was registered to Franklin Hensley, a local salesman who'd vanished 20 years earlier, Halloween night 2003. He'd been driving home from a late appointment when he disappeared along that same road. The sheriff told me they found his watch, still on his wrist. It had stopped, waterlogged and cracked at 11:47 p.m. That was the exact minute I'd seen that sedan gliding ahead of me in the storm. At first, I thought it had to be a coincidence. Maybe my mind was playing tricks in the fog. But 2 nights later, I started hearing static in my truck radio again. Every time I drove that same stretch. No matter the frequency, no matter the time, I'd hear the same faint hum building in the speakers. Sometimes it's just white noise. Other times, I swear I hear a man breathing through it. Last week, curiosity or stupidity got the better of me. I drove back out there after sunset. The air was dead calm, no wind, no rain. The road was slick with dew. I parked near the pond and shut off the engine. For a long minute, there was nothing. Just the soft chirp of crickets and the hum of my truck cooling down. Then slowly, the static began again, faint and crackling through my dashboard speakers even though the radio was off. And through the distortion, I heard it. That same voice. "This time clearer," he said. "I told you. Don't follow me." I reached for the ignition, but before I could turn the key, the lights flickered. The truck engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. And in the reflection of the windshield, I saw headlights behind me. 2 dim yellow beams drifting out of the fog. No engine sound. No movement of wheels. Just a car silently approaching. I grabbed my phone and stumbled out, heart hammering, but when I turned around, there was nothing. No headlights, no car. Just the pond, calm and black, rippling slightly like something had just sunk beneath its surface. I don't take that road anymore. In fact, I don't work nights at all. But sometimes, late when I can't sleep, I'll sit by the window and watch the rain slide down the glass. And when the thunder hits just right, I swear, I see faint headlights gliding through the reflection, silent, slow, and every clock in my house, digital or not, will freeze for a few seconds, always at 11:47 p.m. It was Halloween night and I was behind the mic as usual, hosting my late-night call-in show Frightline. I'm Rick Miles, 38, been doing radio for most of my adult life. The hours are weird, the pay is decent, and the night has always had its own energy. There's something about broadcasting into the dark when everyone else is asleep. It makes the ordinary feel uncanny. The studio was quiet except for the hum of equipment and the faint hiss of static from the on-air board. Outside, rain slapped against the windows and a stiff wind rattled the old building. Halloween always brings out the strange calls. Kids telling ghost stories, drunks laughing about hauntings, pranksters testing their own courage. But tonight, it felt different. The first call came in around 12:03 a.m. The line clicked, and a trembling female voice filled the studio. "Hello, is this Frightline?" "Yeah, you're live," I said casually, leaning into the mic. "Who's calling?" I think someone is following me," she said. Her voice shook so badly I could hear her teeth chatter. "A truck. It's behind me, but there's no one driving it. I can see it through my rear view. I've been driving for miles." I frowned. "Okay, ma'am, calm down. Where are you right now?" "Highway 47. The old logging route, please." I grabbed my notebook, jotting down what I could. "Do you want me to call the police?" "No. Please don't hang up. Just keep talking." The line was dead silent except for her panicked breaths and the faint roar of the wind through the receiver. I could almost hear the tires on wet asphalt, though I knew it was coming through her microphone. Then a sudden scream, a sharp, high-pitched shriek that cut through the speakers and sent a chill down my spine. The line went dead. My heart thumped, and the studio suddenly felt colder than usual. I grabbed the phone to call her back, but there was no dial tone. Just silence. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my eyes. "It's just a call," I told myself. "Probably a prank or a drunk driver with a bad connection." Then the phone rang again. The studio phone. My own number. I froze, staring at the display. Slowly, I picked it up. "Rick Miles," the same woman's voice whispered through the line. Faint, distorted, trembling. "He's behind you. Now." I nearly dropped the receiver. My studio is small, but I could hear every creak of the old building. The wind rattled the window above my head. The static on my broadcast board jumped, crackling like nails across a chalkboard. I turned slowly toward the control room door, and that's when I saw it. Nothing. I laughed nervously. "Okay, Rick. It's nothing. Just nerves. The storm. Halloween." But then a tap, soft, deliberate, from the glass window next to the studio door. I froze. The studio door is locked from the inside. I don't own another entrance, and there's no roof access, and yet the tapping continued. Slow, patient. I swallowed hard, gripping the phone like a lifeline. My gaze flicked to the back door window. For a split second, I thought I saw a shadow moving outside, leaning against the brick wall, impossibly still but larger than a human. I told myself it was the wind, my imagination. Then the static on the board swelled. The air in the studio felt heavier, like breathing underwater. My skin prickled. My chair groaned as if something had brushed against it. I glanced at the studio monitor. My car was still parked outside, headlights off. I hadn't moved it since I arrived hours ago. The rain had stopped for a moment, but outside the asphalt gleamed wet. And then, the engine started. Slowly at first, then revving to life without a driver behind the wheel. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor. The faint smell of wet asphalt and motor oil filled the room. I backed against the console, shaking. The static intensified, and then, in the middle of that white noise, I heard it again. My name, whispered so clearly it made the hair on my arms stand on end. "Rick." I bolted to the back door, trying the handle. It was locked. Panic rose like a tide. The lights flickered. The studio's old fluorescent bulbs buzzed, then dimmed. In the faint glow of the emergency lights, I could see shadows moving on the walls, shapes stretching and curling impossibly. The phone rang again. My own number flashing. My trembling hands reached for it. "He's behind you now," the woman whispered. A loud thud rattled the studio door. Then another, and another, each strike synchronized with the static that screamed through my speakers. I pressed myself against the control desk, heart hammering. My breaths came in short, sharp bursts. I tried calling dispatch, tried calling the police, but every line was dead. Even my cell phone had no signal. The storm had cut it all off. And yet somehow someone was in my studio, watching, waiting. The tapping grew louder, urgent, desperate. It sounded like fingernails scraping along the brick. Then silence. The static stopped and I heard it, the low hiss of a truck idling. Outside, no one behind the wheel. Just standing there somewhere in the darkness, waiting. I forced myself to peek out the window. My car was still there, driver's door swinging open slightly. Steam curled from the engine, coiling into the night like smoke from a grave. But the seat was empty. No one behind the wheel. Nothing. I ran to the door and yanked at the handle, locked. My knuckles bled as I pounded. I shouted, but my own voice sounded muffled, swallowed by the night. The static came back, blasting through the speakers. And in the middle of it, the woman's voice whispered one final time, "He's behind you." I swear I felt the air shift behind me, cold and heavy like a hand had brushed my shoulder. I don't remember what happened next. The next thing I knew, I woke up outside the studio. The front door was open, the rain had stopped, and my car was gone. Nothing else moved. The radio was tuned to static, softly crackling like someone or something was still listening. Police found my car later that night, parked outside the station, engine warm, driver's door ajar. The radio? Tuned to static. No one inside. No signs of forced entry, nothing. I quit the radio shortly after. I don't go near the station, and I never work nights anymore. But sometimes when the storm hits and the wind shakes my windows, I swear I hear static whispering through my old speakers. My name and hers. And I know deep down that whatever was behind me that night is still out there. I'm Marcus Hale, and I've been driving long stretches of highway for years, mostly for work, sometimes just for the quiet of being behind the wheel at night. I can handle storms, I can handle loneliness, but nothing prepared me for what happened that Halloween night. Not ever. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour when the world feels paused and the hum of your car feels like the only living thing on the road. My friend Derek and I had been heading back from a small Halloween gathering, mostly costume laughs, cheap beer, and stories that got darker as the night went on. The highway was empty, save for the occasional flashing taillight in the distance. We were tired, hungry, and desperate for gas. That's when we saw it. A lone station on the side of the road, the kind you'd expect to be boarded up years ago. Yet here it was, lights flickering like a beacon. A neon sign buzzed in the wind, weak and uneven. Sparks, gas, and groceries. I swear this place wasn't on the map, Derek said, squinting through the drizzle. It looks wrong, I shrugged. Gas, snacks, whatever. Let's stop. We're not far from civilization anyway. We pulled in slowly. The pavement was wet and reflected the neon like molten glass. The lights inside the station blinked, casting shadows across the forecourt in jittering bursts. It looked abandoned, almost deliberately quiet. "Hello?" I called as we stepped out. My boots splashed in shallow puddles, the smell of rain-soaked asphalt and gasoline mixing in a way that set my teeth on edge. No answer. We walked to the door. The bell above it didn't ring. Through the glass, the interior looked normal. Shelves stacked with cans and bottles, a counter, a cash register. But the clerk was nowhere to be seen. Maybe he stepped back, Derek suggested, trying to shake the tension off. I nodded, though my gut was twisting. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, low and buzzing, giving the room a pulse that felt alive. I stepped closer to the register, the faint smell of dust and old coffee hitting my nose. Empty, completely empty. Then a loud click behind us made both of us spin. Our car was gone. Gone. The headlights, the familiar silhouette of the sedan. It had vanished. In its place, only wet footprints led away from the pavement, into the shadowed woods bordering the station. They were fresh, dark against the mud, glistening like they'd been carved into the earth by someone, or something just moments ago. "What the hell?" Derek whispered, voice tight. I didn't answer. We followed the trail, boots squishing through mud, branches scratching our faces and arms. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint scent of gasoline, as if the station had never left our noses. The footprints led us deeper, the road vanishing, swallowed by dark. My chest was tight and my stomach churned like we were being funneled somewhere we weren't meant to go. The further we walked, the more the air changed. It grew colder, heavier, like the forest itself was watching, breathing with us. After what felt like an eternity, we reached a clearing. There it was. Our car, idling. Headlights full beam aimed directly at a crooked, rusted sign nailed to a tree. The words glimmered under the headlight glow. "Welcome back." I froze, unable to look away. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. This isn't funny, Marcus," I didn't answer. The car's engine droned, smooth, too smooth, like it had never been driven by human hands. The wet footprints ended at the hood as if someone had climbed in and melted away into nothing. And then we heard the hum of neon, the same flickering light from the gas station. We turned, and just beyond the tree line it appeared again. The station. Same broken sign, same flickering lights, same silence. But this time it felt alive, waiting, watching. Derek stumbled back. "We need to leave now. Forget the car. Forget this place." I wanted to, but the car was still there, tempting, beckoning, a lifeline. I stepped toward it, my hands shaking. Derek grabbed my arm. Don't touch it," he hissed. But before I could respond, the lights inside the station pulsed violently, the neon buzzing like it was speaking. A faint, low hum rose from it, a tone almost vocal, as if the building itself was breathing, whispering. And then the door creaked open. No one stepped out. No shadows moved. Yet the air felt full of eyes, countless and unseen. And the smell, foul, metallic, wet earth mixed with gasoline, hit me like a fist. We didn't move at first, frozen in place. Then the car door opened by itself. The interior lights flickered weakly. And from inside, a whisper, not through the speakers, not on the radio, but in the air itself, drifted to us. "Come back." I felt it in my chest, heavy and insistent, like a pressure pushing me forward, compelling me to enter. Derek shouted, grabbing me by the jacket. Run, Marcus!" We sprinted blindly, following the footprints backward, mud spraying, branches slapping, heart hammering. The lights of the station faded, swallowed by the forest, yet the hum lingered, like a pulse behind our ribs. Eventually, we stumbled out of the trees and back onto the highway. The night was normal again, or as normal as it could be in the middle of a Halloween storm. Our car was gone, and when we returned to town, it was found abandoned at a convenience store near the edge of the county. Wet but empty. Headlights off, engine cold, keys gone. We never went back. The area was reported to the sheriff, but nothing was found. No footprints, no station, no trace of the eerie welcome back sign, just static in my dreams at night. I still see that flickering neon sometimes, even when I'm miles away. And I can't shake the sensation of being watched. Somewhere in the dark woods, that station waits, waiting for the next person foolish enough or unlucky enough to stop for gas. I've told this story to a few friends since, and sometimes I wonder if they believe me. I don't care. I know what I saw, and I know what followed us. I can still smell the damp asphalt, hear the engine hum, and see those lights flickering through the trees. And every Halloween, I dream about wet footprints leading me into the forest, and a crooked sign that says in neon glow, "Welcome back." My name's Mason Carter, and I've always been the guy chasing the thrill, not stupid thrill. College dares, stupid pranks, and stupid Halloween stunts were my specialty. So when my friends dared me to drive through the Birch Hollow tunnel past midnight, I laughed and said yes. I'd heard the stories. The tunnel was cursed, haunted longer than it should be, drivers disappearing and cars found half-crushed years later. All urban legend, of course. That's what I told myself as I shoved my keys into the ignition that Halloween night. I left my apartment around 11:30 p.m., the October air sharp against my face, a thin mist rolling off the highway. My old Civic shivered as I drove, tires hissing on wet pavement. Fog clung low to the ground, and the trees along Birch Hollow twisted like gnarled hands reaching for the road. The highway was deserted, save for the occasional rustle of wind through dead leaves. I laughed nervously, telling myself this was nothing. The entrance to the tunnel loomed ahead like a yawning mouth. Concrete walls covered in black streaks, the paint peeling. The neon orange warning lights above flickered in erratic patterns, as though the tunnel itself was hesitating to let me enter. I hesitated too, hand on the gear shift, heart thumping. I glanced at my rearview mirror. The highway behind me was empty, silent. I pressed down on the accelerator and entered. Immediately, the temperature inside my car dropped. My breath fogged the windows, and the engine seemed louder somehow, echoing unnaturally off the tunnel walls. The lights above flickered, casting sharp shadows that crawled across the ceiling in jerky, unnatural rhythms. I flicked the radio on, hoping to distract myself with some static-filled music, but there was no music. Instead, I heard it. Soft, rhythmic tapping beneath the static, almost imperceptible at first. Morse code, my brain realized. I adjusted the dial. The tapping grew clearer, faster. Dot, dash, dot, dot, dash. I leaned closer to the radio, trying to make sense of it. It was whispering faintly in code. My pulse hammered against my ribs. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight enough to whiten my knuckles. "Hello?" I whispered, half expecting an answer. Silence. Then the tapping resumed, louder now, insistent, almost urgent. The tunnel seemed to stretch on far longer than I remembered from the map. Curves that should have ended nowhere. Shadows warped and twisted along the walls. My headlights bounced off reflective signs, but the distance ahead never shortened. I could swear the end of the tunnel was moving away from me. I tried turning around, but there was no back. The entrance was gone, swallowed by darkness. Panic began to prick at the edges of my mind. My rational brain shouted that this was impossible. Tunnels don't stretch, lights don't flicker like this, radios don't speak in code. And yet everything in me screamed that something was here, watching, guiding. Then I saw it. A pair of headlights piercing the darkness coming toward me. At first I thought it was another car foolish enough to enter the tunnel at this hour, but the closer it got, the worse it felt. I could see the shape, my Civic, my own car driving straight toward me. Headlights bright and steady, reflection glaring against the wet concrete walls. The driver's seat? Empty. I slammed my brakes, heart pounding. My own reflection in the windshield stared back at me, terrified. My hands shook violently on the wheel. The oncoming car moved unnaturally, almost gliding, not steering, not braking. I swerved to the right, hoping it would pass. It didn't. The sound of air and tires was gone. Just headlights and the sense of inevitability. I yelled, "Stop! Stop!" My voice echoed back at me, swallowed by the tunnel. The Morse code on the radio accelerated, frantic, as if warning me, pleading with me. Dot dash, dot dash, dot dash. My pulse throbbed with it, each tap matching my heartbeat, my fear, my panic. I veered hard, almost hitting the wall. The oncoming Civic didn't slow. And then, it passed through me. I swear the lights enveloped me, the headlights blinding, searing. And then silence. I was alone again. The tunnel ahead seemed impossibly long, walls stretching into a deep darkness that shouldn't exist. My hands shook uncontrollably, sweat mixing with the cold mist that had settled on my skin. I tried the radio again, hoping to drown out my own fear. And this time, a whisper came through, not in Morse code, but in breathless, human words. "Turn back." I laughed nervously, forcing a chuckle that shook out of me. "Yeah, sure. Turn back." "Sure," I said to no one. I wanted to exit, but the curves ahead twisted impossibly. Signs repeated themselves. Birch Hollow Tunnel, mile 1, then again. Then again. Each one identical, each one mocking me. My headlights revealed the same cracks, the same peeling paint, the same shadows. It felt like I was moving in circles, though the map made no sense. My GPS blinked erratically, displaying a perfect circle, the tunnel looping endlessly. Then I heard it. A soft tapping behind me. Not from the car, not the radio, something real, something outside my windows. I dared to glance in the rearview mirror. Nothing, just darkness. My own heartbeat roared in my ears. I kept moving, gripping the wheel as if it were my only lifeline. And then I glimpsed it again. My car. Same headlights, same empty driver's seat closing in behind me. But this time it wasn't moving along the asphalt. It was floating, hovering slightly above the surface, gliding without a sound. I could see the windshield, dust-covered, streaked with strange handprints pressed from inside. Not my handprints. Not human, or at least, not alive. I screamed, slammed my brakes, tried swerving, anything. But the car behind me matched every movement perfectly, mimicking me. And I realized it wasn't coming toward me. It was me. Every panic, every dodge, every desperate swerve, it was being mirrored by that thing behind me. My own reflection, corrupted, haunting. Then the headlights ahead, which I hadn't noticed before, flickered. The tunnel walls rippled in the light, twisting, stretching. Shadows elongated, shapes forming on the concrete. Faces pressed against the walls from the inside. Hands reaching out, eyes hollow. And I saw my reflection among them, screaming, mouth wide, eyes blank. The radio exploded in static, the Morse code now rapid, incoherent. I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I couldn't breathe. I swerved again, hitting the side wall, crunching metal and echoing in the tunnel like a scream itself. Suddenly, headlights collided with mine. My car, the real one, smashed into mine halfway through the tunnel, crumpled, smoke curling from the hood. And then silence. I crawled out, hands shaking, trying to comprehend. Dust coated the seats, handprints pressed into the glass, and every surface was etched with fingerprints that weren't mine. I looked at the clock on my dashboard. It had stopped. Exactly at 11:59 p.m., the same minute I had entered the tunnel. I called the police from my cell phone when I stumbled out of the wreck. They found one vehicle, the collision halfway through the tunnel. Both seats coated in dust, both pressed with handprints, none human, none alive. I don't know what they made of my story. I told them everything about the radio, the whispers, the looping, the second car. They took notes, gave me water, told me it was lucky to be alive. But I can't stop thinking about it. The tunnel isn't real anymore, not in the way it should be. Every time I close my eyes, I see that tunnel stretching endlessly. Curves twisting, walls pulsing, faces pressed against concrete. And I can hear it even now. The faint Morse code on the radio whispering my name, warning me. And I know one day, whether I want to or not, I'll have to go back. Because the tunnel doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. It waits, and eventually, it will come for the part of me it didn't take the first time. My name is Clara Jensen, and I've always thought of myself as cautious, grounded. I don't chase ghosts or hauntings, I don't take dares. But that Halloween night, I should have stayed home. I should have listened to my instincts. Instead, I ended up on a road that wasn't on any map, being hunted by a version of myself I'll never forget. It started simply enough. My husband Eric and I were driving back from a small Halloween gathering. The night was unusually cold for October. Our breaths fogged the windows despite the heater humming steadily. The highway was almost empty, a thin mist hanging over the asphalt, softening the glow of the streetlights. We laughed about the party, about the costumes, about how ridiculous some people looked trying to be scary. The air smelled faintly of damp leaves, wet asphalt, and pumpkin spice from a leftover coffee in my cup holder. "I think we missed our exit," Eric said, squinting at the GPS. His brow furrowed. "Yeah, this isn't right. Should have turned 2 miles back." I groaned, adjusting my seatbelt. "Figures. Why do these things always happen on Halloween?" He chuckled, turning the wheel. "I'll just follow the next exit. Nothing bad will happen." Famous last words. We drove for a while, but the next exit never came. Instead, the road stretched on, narrow, unmarked, flanked by dense trees that seemed to lean in toward the asphalt. The GPS spun uselessly, showing only gray. Nothing. No signs, no lights, not even a hint that this road existed. It felt unreal, like we had slipped through the cracks of the world. "That's weird," I said, voice tighter than I intended. "There's no name on this road. Nothing on the map." Eric tried to shrug it off, but I could hear it in his voice, hesitation. My pulse quickened as shadows from the trees played across the windshield, shifting and twisting unnaturally in the passing headlights. Then we saw it. A broken-down car on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking weakly. "That's odd," Eric murmured. "How is a car even out here?" We slowed, pulling over behind it. The air smelled like rust and damp metal. The hazard lights blinked rhythmically, casting a soft red glow on the foggy asphalt. I reached for my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. No reception at all. "I'll just check on them," Eric said, stepping out, his shoes crunching against the gravel. The mist curled around his legs, sticking to his jeans. I shivered. "Be careful," I called after him, but the words sounded hollow. He didn't answer. He approached the vehicle, moving closer. And then I noticed something that made my stomach turn. The license plate. It was ours. My pulse hit my throat. Our car's plate staring back at me in the dim hazard light. I froze. "Eric, come back." He didn't. My hands gripped the dashboard. The fog thickened, curling around the broken-down car like fingers. And then I saw them. Inside the vehicle, pale and still, copies of us. Perfect copies. My face frozen in a neutral expression, Eric's eyes staring blankly ahead. The way they sat, it was impossible. They weren't breathing. They didn't blink. I stumbled out of the car, heart hammering, and Eric's hand froze halfway to the door. He turned to me, eyes wide. "Clara, they're..." I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. The duplicates turned their heads simultaneously toward us. Their faces split into smiles, too wide, too knowing, unnerving in a way I can't describe. Their eyes glimmered in the fog, unnatural, too sharp, like they could see every corner of our souls. Eric took a step back, but I couldn't move. My legs refused. The headlights of the duplicated car flickered once, and in that brief flash, it felt like our very essence was being measured, catalogued, studied. "Clara," Eric whispered, voice tight. "We need to go now." I nodded, finally forcing my legs to move. We ran back to our car, rain beginning to fall in cold, heavy drops. The mist swirled around us, thickening. We fumbled with the keys, slipping inside the vehicle. The engine turned over, but the road ahead, it had changed. The broken-down car was gone, and in its place the road stretched endlessly, flanked by the same leaning trees. Every shadow seemed to ripple with movement, as if alive. We drove. We didn't speak, hearts hammering in sync with the wipers swishing through the fog. Every few miles I glimpsed the same car in the distance, hazard lights blinking. It didn't move. It didn't drive. It just waited, watching. Hours passed. Miles blurred. The road seemed infinite. My stomach churned and Eric's hands shook on the wheel. Every turn we took led us back to the same point, the same unmarked stretch where the car waited, exactly like a predator lying in ambush. "I can't..." Eric's voice broke. "I can't drive anymore. It's not real. This road, it's not real." "I know," I said. I did know. I could feel it. The air was too thick, too still, and the smell, metal, damp earth, and something acrid, was everywhere. It clung to our clothes, our hair, our skin, marking us as intruders in this impossible place. Finally, unable to go any further, we pulled over. The car idling, the engine ticking, the other car, closer now, hazard lights flickering weakly in the fog. We stepped out, hearts hammering, air cold and heavy. The duplicates were still there, pale, unmoving, smiling that same unnatural smile. The fog shifted, wrapping around the trees and asphalt like it had a mind of its own. The duplicates' heads tilted, synchronizing perfectly. The smile widened. It was a warning, an invitation, a threat, I couldn't tell which. I grabbed Eric's hand, trying to pull him back. "We don't belong here. We don't belong here." But the duplicates didn't move. The car remained still, lights flickering. And then, without warning, they both leaned forward slightly, as if acknowledging us. A hum, low and resonant, vibrated through the air. It wasn't a sound from the car. It came from the road, the trees, the very mist itself. I panicked, yanking Eric toward our car. But when we looked back, the duplicates were gone. The road stretched endlessly, now empty, silent except for the rain hitting the roof. We didn't stop driving until the first light of dawn, when the mist finally lifted. Houses appeared at the edge of the road. The GPS flickered back to life. Everything seemed normal again. When we reported it, the authorities found only one vehicle. The road had vanished from maps entirely, and no one could determine which car was real, which car had the duplicates inside. The broken-down vehicle, the hazard lights, the fog, and our exact copies gone, as if they'd never existed. But I know better. I still see them when I close my eyes, the smiles too wide, too knowing. I feel their gaze when the night is quiet. I can't shake it, and I can't stop thinking about the road that isn't there, the road that waits for the next lost travelers. And every Halloween when I'm alone and the mist settles, I swear I can hear the faint flicker of hazard lights in the distance calling my name. I've never driven that highway again. I never will. But sometimes, I wake up and for just a moment I feel the weight of those eyes on me, and I remember, somewhere out there on a road that doesn't exist, there's another car waiting, and it's smiling.